Hello, friends, and welcome to Sleep Tight Stories. Timmy had made up his mind to find a way to the library. He decides to go and try to get Tinkle so he can ride over to BarleyBrook. As he is talking to Tinkle, Miss Elara tells him he can take Tinkle and gives him a bit of food for the trip, but tells him he needs to be back by evening. Timmy and Tinkle head out on their way, but it is taking longer than Timmy had hoped. As they stop for a rest, Timmy is wondering if they will be able to get to the library in time. Little Timmy and Tinkle find the library. Part 3. Stopping by the stream had been a brief respite, but now, as they ventured forward, the path grew more challenging. A dense forest lay ahead, its towering trees casting long shadows that seemed to mirror Timmy's apprehensions. Recalling tales of brave heroes navigating mysterious woods, he took a deep breath and urged Tinkle forward. Navigating the forest was a challenging task. Thorny bushes scratched at Timmy's legs, and more than once, he had to dismount to lead Tinkle around particularly tricky patches. At one point, they came across a fallen tree blocking their way. Seeing it as yet another obstacle in their path, Timmy felt more than a bit of frustration. However, in a moment of inspiration, he remembered his love for climbing trees. He decided to scale the fallen tree for a vantage point. As he pulled himself to the top, he was met with a beautiful sight, a panoramic view of BarleyBrook in the distance, its rooftops glistening in the afternoon sun. This view renewed his optimism, reminding him that sometimes challenges offer the most rewarding perspectives. Descending, Timmy spotted wild berries growing nearby and heard the familiar grumbling of his own stomach. He left without thought for food that morning and was starting to feel the effects of his rashness. Inspired by memories of his mother's bread pudding, he mashed the berries with some of the stale bread Miss Elara had given him, creating a makeshift berry bread pudding. As the sweet and tart flavors melded in his mouth, memories of home and his mother's cooking flooded him, giving him the energy to continue. Feeling re-energized, Timmy remounted Tinkle, his desire to make it to the library as strong as ever. With BarleyBrook just over the horizon, Timmy whispered words of encouragement to Tinkle, both pressing on, hoping he could make it in time. As Timmy and Tinkle continued on, the land began to change suddenly. The dense woods gave way to more open meadows, dotted with wildflowers swaying in the gentle breeze. A worn path became evident, a testament to its frequent use by BarleyBrook's residents. Birds sang harmonies from the treetops, and a distant hum of the town could be heard, signaling their proximity to their destination. The final stretch of their journey was marked by the soft glow of lights inside the houses on the outskirts, welcoming them to BarleyBrook. BarleyBrook is renowned for its annual Storytellers Festival. For generations, residents and visitors have gathered every fall to share tales, from ancient legends passed down through the ages to contemporary stories of adventure and discovery. Timmy's grandfather wasn't interested in these events. Still, his mother loved going to BarleyBrook to buy crafts, incredibly, beautifully hand-bound books and journals. The artisans used traditional methods, and their works are sought after by bibliophiles from all over the region. BarleyBrook is a haven for storytellers and craft enthusiasts. The town, with its picturesque houses and cobblestone streets, was coming into view just as the sun painted the sky with hues of orange and purple. The clock tower, a central piece of the town's architecture, showed the late hour, making Timmy's heart race faster. The library, his ultimate destination, stood proud, but seemed to be winding down for the day. He urged Tinkle on, asking him to go just a little bit faster. Tinkle neighed in agreement. The sound of his hooves created a rhythmic and distinctive clip-clop sound. The hard surface of the cobblestone streets amplified the noise, giving Timmy the sense of the town's old-world charm. As they approached the library, he could see the librarian, a kind-faced elderly lady, beginning to close the heavy wooden doors. Panic surged within him. Had they come all this way only to face a closed door? But then, as if fate had a slight twist in store, a young boy around Timmy's age, with tousled hair and a mischievous glint in his eyes, dashed from an alley. "Wait, Miss Eleanor," he shouted, holding up a book. "Almost forgot to return this." Grateful for the delay, Timmy urged Tinkle forward. But as he drew near, he realized that the library's closing time had indeed arrived. With a warm smile and a pat on the boy's head, Miss Eleanor turned to Timmy, his eyes curious but understanding. "I'm sorry, young man," she began, her voice soft with regret. "The library is closing." Timmy's face fell. His disappointment was plainly seen on his face. However, the boy who had returned the book, noticing Timmy's disappointment, whispered something into Miss Eleanor's ear. With a thoughtful nod, she turned to Timmy. "The library might be closing, but have you ever been to Mrs. Maple's reading nook at the community center? It's not as extensive, but it's cozy, and you'll find books full of stories there too." Timmy's face lit up. It might not be the grand library adventure he'd envisioned, but he was eager to go if there were books to be found. Leaving the library, he waved to the young boy and the librarian. The street took them past old townhouses with ivory-covered walls and chimneys puffing out gentle streams of smoke. Children played while elderly folks nodded at Timmy from their porches, their eyes filled with stories of their own. As they continued, the downtown, full of many buildings of all sorts, began to thin, making way for charming little gardens brimming with blooming flowers. The scent of flowers wafted through the air. Soon, they reached a park, in the center of which was the community center and Mrs. Maple's reading nook. Timmy left Tinkle, after first sharing more apples with him, tied by a tall oak tree. As he left, he said, "I wish I could take you with me, Tinkle, but I don't think ponies are allowed inside. Even good, small ponies like yourself." Tinkle let out a soft neigh as if he understood what Timmy had just said. As Timmy approached the community center, the building loomed large and welcoming, with its sturdy brick walls and tall arched windows that emitted a warm golden glow. Pushing open the heavy wooden door, he was immediately met with soft murmurs, distant laughter, and the unmistakable rustling of pages being turned. Directly ahead, a large, intricately designed banner reading Mrs. Maple's Reading Nook hung above an entranceway, drawing him in. Passing through, he was met with a sight that made his heart skip a beat. The vast space had been transformed into a reader's paradise. Tall bookshelves lined the walls, reaching the ceiling, filled with books of every size, color, and genre. Ladders on wheels were placed alongside them, inviting anyone to climb and reach for a story that might be calling out to them. Cozy alcoves had been created between the shelves, each equipped with plush chairs, soft blankets, and warm lighting. Perfect little havens for readers to lose themselves in a tale. The center of the room featured large circular tables around which groups of children and adults were gathered, some discussing their latest reads, while others were engrossed in colorful board games. In one corner, an elderly gentleman narrated tales to a group of wide-eyed children. On the far side, Timmy noticed a section dedicated solely to crafts. Here, folks bound books, painted bookmarks, and even crafted quills. The air was rich with the scent of leather, ink, and parchment. But what captivated Timmy the most was the ceiling. A vast, starry night sky was painted on it, complete with constellations and shimmering galaxies. Soft, ambient lights were embedded, mimicking stars, and they twinkled intermittently, adding to the illusion. Timmy sat himself at a large table piled high with books that had kids sharing tales and, to his delight, bread pudding. One could never have enough bread pudding. As he had the opportunity to share his own story of the journey with Tinkle, the day's trial seemed worthwhile. The day might have gone differently than planned. Still in the cozy nook of BarleyBrook's community center, surrounded by new friends and tales, Timmy realized that sometimes the journey and the unexpected stops along the way are just as important as the destination. The hours spent at Mrs. Maple's reading nook were a delightful blur for Timmy. But as the night deepened, a pressing concern grew in the back of his mind: his return to Rye River. The ride back was bound to be more challenging in the dark, and more importantly, he dreaded facing his grandfather after his long-announced absence. Mounting Tinkle with the stars overhead as his guiding lights, Timmy ventured into the cool night. As they retraced their path, the weight of the day's events pressed on his heart. The blend of adventure, discovery, and unexpected turns made him reflect on the importance of home and family. To his surprise, he saw flickering lanterns dotting the path as they approached Rye River. Squinting through the dim light, he discerned familiar faces from the town, all gathered in what looked like a search party. At the forefront was his grandfather, his face etched with worry, eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of his beloved grandson. As soon as Timmy's silhouette became visible, a cheer went up among the townsfolk. But it was the embrace of his grandfather that meant the most. Holding Timmy close, the old man's voice wavered with relief. "I feared I'd lost you just like I lost them," he murmured, referring to Timmy's parents. Tears pooling in his eyes, Timmy whispered his apology, expressing his yearning for adventure and stories, but also realizing the importance of sharing and not embarking on such journeys alone. The townsfolk, inspired by Timmy's tale and the bond between him and his grandfather, decided to organize regular story sessions, ensuring that no child would ever feel the need to journey far for a tale or a book. And so, amidst relieved laughter and shared stories, Timmy discovered that sometimes the most significant adventures are those that bring you closer to home. The first light of dawn broke, casting a gentle glow on Rye River. A soft nudge woke Timmy, wrapped in the warmth of his bed. Opening his eyes, he found a surprise waiting: a stack of books placed by his bedside, their spines shimmering in the morning light that flowed through his old curtains. Emerging from his room, he found his grandfather in the living room, a twinkle in his eye. "These are from the folks in BarleyBrook," he said, a hint of a smile on his lips. "Seems the story of your adventure left quite the impression." Timmy's heart swelled with gratitude. His quest for stories led him to BarleyBrook's treasures and brought a piece of that world back to his home. His grandfather felt inspired after hearing of Timmy's escapade and his newfound friends in BarleyBrook. One evening, as Timmy returned home, he was led to the heart of their garden. A newly crafted, cozy reading space awaited him, nestled between the intertwining branches of their ancient oak tree. Lanterns hung softly from above, their gentle glow illuminating the pages of books that now rested on crafted wooden shelves. "A place for you to travel without leaving home," his grandfather whispered, placing an arm around Timmy's shoulder. As the sun set over Rye River, they settled into their enchanting nook, journeying through stories together. Having become a cherished part of their lives, Tinkle lounged nearby, his eyes half closed in contentment. With each story they delved into, memories of Timmy's parents seemed to flutter around them. The adventures in the books were mesmerizing, but it was the shared moments with his grandfather that Timmy found truly valuable. For in those moments, he understood that stories weren't just about faraway lands and daring escapades. They were about connections, memories, and the warmth of home. And that's the end of our story. Good night. Sleep tight.